The opening day of the Italian Grand Prix weekend at Monza has come to a close, and surprisingly enough, Ferrari have dominated proceedings, dominating FP1 with Lewis Hamilton leading home Charles Leclerc for a Ferrari 1-2. And in the second practice session a little bit later in the day, which has just ended, they once again were in the leading trio in the top three. Now, there is a couple of interesting things we can discuss revolving around Ferrari, as well as a look towards what we can expect to see happen towards qualifying, as well as, of course, more importantly, the race. But to begin with, a roundup of Ferrari's opening day. Now, interestingly enough, Ferrari generally always seem to do quite well in comparison to their rivals when it comes to Monza. We've seen that on numerous occasions, and today was no different. The balance out of the blocks was there for both drivers and was clear to see no matter what variation of rearing the drivers were using. Now that is quite an interesting topic to discuss. Now, as we know, Ferrari, thanks to Auto Racer's information, were bringing two variations of a rear ring. One was the bog standard one they've been using since 2023, and one in 24 for this weekend. And there was a more extreme variation on that, where they pushed the boundaries that much further with regards to what is legal in terms of the flexibility of it. And of course, on top of that, the drag reduction that they can induce from a further reduction in the upper flaps on this rear ring. Now, to begin with, there was a back-to-back comparison between Leclerc and Hamilton with these two variations, with Leclerc having the more extreme one. Now, at the halfway point of FP1, Hamilton made the switch to the more extreme version, from which he went on to lead the session, bringing up a Ferrari 1-2. Now, behind them, there was quite an interesting gap to all the other kind of usual contenders that we would expect to have around Monza, which is Red Bull, McLaren, and of course Mercedes. And that trend actually continues into FP2, which is just this moment finished, with Ferrari again looking highly competitive in and around their rivals. Now, there's a few things I need to bring to everyone's attention, and it's something Ferrari generally do in comparison to their rivals. They run higher engine modes, or they run less fuel in comparison to the likes of Red Bull and McLaren. That was quite evident in differing ways throughout the two practice sessions. In the FP1 session, we could see they had a higher top speed than their rivals, but also if we compare their top speed in FP1 to that of Q3 last year, there's a 10 km/h difference. So while Ferrari are running the car much more stronger or harder initially in the opening day of practice, there is still plenty more room for improvement in terms of top speed. It was quite noticeable in FP1, Max Verstappen in sector 1 alone, which literally comprises 2 long straights and 1 corner. They were 5 kph down on the Ferraris. And it was a similar situation in FP2 as well. Now, we can turn our attention to the most important aspect of FP2, away from how the cars look and feel and handle for the drivers, and that is race pace. Now, this is a thing which is a trend throughout 2025 for Ferrari. They are much more suitable to having more competitive race pace as opposed to qualifying pace. We've seen that on numerous occasions. They've been quite a chunk off when it comes to qualifying, but that very much closes come race day. And there is interesting comparisons to be made across all of the big 4 teams from FP2. Of course, as we would expect, McLaren lead the way in degradation. They have literally minimal tyre deg throughout their FP2 race simulations, and that is something that is going to be of an eye-opener and something for people to note. They will not, I think, be able to do a one-stop strategy like they did last year with Leclerc to win the race, because McLaren's tyre management preservation is just that much more stronger than it was at this point last year. So it's going to be, I presume, a head-to-head battle between whichever teams kind of get their grips on the rest of the weekend and how it all unfolds. and we're talking from a variable standpoint of the weather conditions, the track conditions, how the tyre behaves with the variable weather in terms of track heating conditions. My mind is not really saying that in a good manner. The track temperature and the air temperature. That's what I was trying to say. So those are the interesting and the most important variables. And one other thing, it seems from this opening day of practice, Ferrari are very much comfortable with the more extreme rearing that they brought to this event. This gives them an extra added boost in straight line performance across all of the straights. It does negatively though impact the DRS efficiency in terms of not only when they open it on qualifying sims, but also when attacking cars if they need to in the race, because it's being trimmed that much more. So the effect of DRS is then mitigated even further. And of course with Monza, it's already at its bare minimal kind of effectiveness because everyone runs these skinny rearings. The drag is very much at a minimal. So DRS really is ineffective for the most part. But all in all, a very encouraging practice session for Ferrari across this Friday afternoon, from which they can take a lot of encouragement into the rest of the weekend. Now, as far as predictions are concerned, after the opening 2 rounds of practice, I believe there's going to be a pecking order of this come qualifying. Lando Norris followed very closely by Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Oscar Piastri in 5th, and obviously that will become 4th with Hamilton's 5th-place grid penalty. And from also the race pace situation, it was a little bit harder to get a full understanding of where everyone was in terms of race pace. But I do expect McLaren to be extremely strong. But if there's multiple cars in between the 2 McLaren drivers, there is no chance they will be able to play any tactical games with them. So I expect very much a Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Hamilton, top 4. I think something is going to happen to Piastri this weekend. That's just my gut instinct. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, do leave a like in this video. There's a new feature with the hype button, so if you have the hype button, do hit it to help this video and the channel and myself perform a lot better than we have been recently. And if you're new here on F1 Unravel, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for all future content on here. Right, enjoy the weekend and I'll catch you across it. See you later.